Hey there, it's Jaymz Bee, and this week on my podcast, I'm going to be talking to Bruce Cassidy, who's a fabulous trumpet player, a master of the EVI, the electronic valve instrument, the flugelhorn, and he is a jazz educator extraordinaire. He's more seasoned than jaded. He's got lots of interesting stories, and he went to the Berklee School of Music in the 50s when it was a school, not a college. It was very small, very intimate, got a great education, ended up coming back to Toronto. Anyway, I'll get to him and his famous bands he's played with and all this stuff in less than 10 minutes. Right now, as I always do, listings. That was my listings reminder. Okay, Old Mill, Toronto. Canadian pianist, bandleader, and jazz educator Brian Dickinson is performing tonight. Jim Vivian on bass, drummer Ethan Ardelli, and as always, it's no cover, $20 minimum, and the Home Smith Bar is a great place to go. So cozy, so classy, and there's plenty of parking over at Old Mill, Toronto. Let's see what's happening. Tomorrow night, it's Andy Ballantyne, who's also a brilliant arranger as well as a saxophonist. And he's going to be playing with some heavy hitters. Rob Pilch on guitar, Pat Collins on bass, Terry Clark on drums. And next Thursday, Russ Little. Oh, one of my favorite people. He's so positive. He's so charming. He plays like crazy. He did the theme to Second City. You know that song? Well, that was actually on trombone, and then he sped it up. He's an amazing trombone player and put out some brilliant records in the last 10 years. So if I wasn't in Havana at the Jazz Festival, I would be at the Old Mill. He's performing with some hot shots, and you can see him. What date is that? Next Thursday. Okay, he's playing with some of my favorite people too. Tom Sesniak on piano, and two cats who played for years with Don Franks. Oh, I miss that guy. Brian Barlow, check out this guy on drums. And also one of my favorite soloists, Scott Alexander on bass. Absolutely beautiful melodic playing from this guy. So that's going to be an amazing show. That's Russ Little, Old Mill, and check out oldmilltoronto.com for all the listings. Click on the Home Smith Bar. Faye Olson does a great job booking bands over there, and there's stuff happening in the main dining room and throughout the building, so check it out, oldmilltoronto.com. At Lula Lounge tonight, the doors for dinner are 6:30, the show's at 7:30, and it's Brazilian music, choro music to be exact. Now this was music from Rio de Janeiro from the late, 18th, 19th century, so 18 something. And it's free admission if you arrive before 8 p.m. Now that's followed by dance lessons, and then there's a live band, Cafe Cubano and DJ Suave. There's a 3-course dinner that they offer, a price fix. Oh, it's delicious food and very reasonably priced. And they got a lot going on there, but I'm going to settle on this one. Check out their site for everything. The Etta James Tribute, next Thursday, January 24th. Danny Nash, Fraser Melvin, Lydia Prasad, so many great performers doing a tribute to the great late Etta James. So that should be cool. At Jazz Bistro, Joaquin Nunez Hidalgo, I can say that. He's there with his band tonight and tomorrow, and next Friday and Saturday, Mark Kelso Trio with Brian Dickinson and Juno Award winner Mike Downs. I love their food at Jazz Bistro. I love the music that Sybil Walker books over there, and I love their bartenders. Try a Bourbon Manhattan if you're up for it. Hughes Room Live, it's all downhill from here. I assume that Dan Hill got super rich for his hit song, Sometimes When We Touch the Honesty. So anyway, he sounds even better than that. And he has written so many cool tunes. Not only hit songs for himself over the years, but songs for, check this list, Celine Dion, Michael Bolton, Donny Osmond, Britney Spears, Tina Turner, Tammy Wynette. I mean, how diverse can one person be? And with all that success and all that money, he is the most soft-spoken, sweet, down-to-earth guy. No entitlement issues. Don't you know who I am? He's just the nicest guy. A true Canadian. So Dan Hill is over at Hughes Room Live. You better get your tickets now. Good luck with that. They might be gone. And Saturday at Hughes Room Live, folk legend and gentle giant Garnett Rogers. Next Thursday, Eliana Cuevas and Jerry Ledbetter, and just there's so much to check out. Hughes Room Live is such a perfect venue. It's a real listening room. They don't have to have a quiet policy. People are just quiet because they're smart and respectful. They don't run around shushing, but no one talks. They understand that this room is all about the music. And now over to the Rex Hotel, therex.ca for everything there. Joanna Majoko is playing tomorrow. Now there's a ton of things to check out at therex.ca, but I'm going to tell you about tomorrow night. Joanna Majoko is playing Saturday, and she is so fantastic. She's got a great band, but it's really about her voice. She can sing anything. Gospel, funk, reggae, soul, jazz, blues, you name it, ballads. Oh God, I worked with her once last year. John O'Grant and I produced a record for the Tiki Collective, and her version of Harlem Nocturne, you can find it everywhere, on Spotify, on iTunes. You gotta check this song out. She melts my heart, and she's gonna be huge. She's gonna catapult into the stratosphere, so go see her while she's still in a small club. The Rex.ca for details. No advance tickets, just walk on up and maybe get there ahead. Check out some of the other bands. They play all day long on Saturday. I do want to mention Patreon. If you would like to support this podcast, perhaps you're a music lover and you enjoy what I do. Perhaps you're a musician and you want me to help you pack the clubs. Let's make this reciprocal. This isn't something with a lot of sponsors, so I could use your support. $5 a month goes a long way, and if you're blessed with money, you can give more. And as far as the clubs, thank you for the support from the clubs. I love you, you love me, we all love jazz. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, that's that. I do want to thank my other two sponsors right now. And if you want to be a sponsor, contact me. Go to jaymzbee.ca. You could find me there. And it's a brand new site. Thanks to Genevieve Marintet for working so hard on this beautiful website. And you can find out how to be a sponsor of this show. It is not expensive, obviously, because, hey, it's the internet. But it's a lot of fun, and I want to thank two people who get it. Barbarian Steakhouse, 7 Elm Street in Toronto. Fine dining. I was there last week, and I absolutely love it. I go there all the time. I like it when other people take me there, because it means they've never been there. And sometimes I'll take out-of-town guests, and they always leave the place with some Barbarian steak seasoning spice. I'm pretending I'm holding it, but it's there behind me. And it's really delicious, and people always love Barbarians, okay? Paul Barber at barberfinancial.ca, wonderful guy. He keeps giving me advice on guests I should have and what I should do. And he's a sweet man, but he also knows a lot about finance. So if you need some help, give Captain Paul a call, say hello, and if you want to have a meeting in the summer, I bet you he'll take you out sailing. That's the kind of guy he is. Anyway, we're going to move on now. Bruce Cassidy is coming up. Not only is he a great trumpet player, flugelhorn player, and EVI player. See that thing behind me? That's the electric valve instrument. It kind of sounds like, well, it's just like a synthesizer with trumpet fingering. It's an amazing instrument, and he's the master of it here in Canada. I don't know anyone else who plays it, let alone masters it the way he does. And so he's been to South Africa, he's been to Boston, he was born in New Brunswick, lived in Montreal, lived in Toronto, moved all over the place. And not only is he a great musician, he also knows about technology, because this camera broke, or something went wrong during our taping at the beginning. He actually figured out how to fix it. And so we're only missing about the first minute of his life, which is in the 50s. We're going right to the 60s, late 60s, when he joined the band Lighthouse. So here's our interview in progress. So we're now, are we mid-60s right now?
Yeah, that would be 69 and 70.
Yeah.
After being here about a year or so, I get involved with them. You know.
Well, that was a super group in Canada, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
They had a number of hits. They played nonstop.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And we did some amazing gigs. I mean, that's where I met Miles on the road with them. We did the Isle of Wight Festival, the last Hendrix Festival. I mean, that was incredible.
So you saw Jimi Hendrix live?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I didn't actually.
Nope.
I didn't know we were partying or something that night. You know, and it was like all the musicians, like whether it was the Who and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and like all the musicians, like it was incredible. Like so.
Yeah.
So. I didn't catch that. I caught Miles.
Greg Lake and Pete Townsend in a party. That sounds like a real party.
Well, you know, it was out there. Well, the whole scene was out there, and there was so many people. I've never seen so many people in my life.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
And the Miles Davis, did you get to speak with him, or did?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He usually doesn't say much,
yeah,
right?
I tell you, the first time I met Miles, we were doing Monterey Jazz Festival. This was part of three festivals: Monterey, Boston Globe, and Isle of Wight.
Mm-hmm.
So Monterey was late. We played late at night, and Miles was coming on directly after us. So the lights were blinding, So and there was I put my horn case behind like a screen or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I go off the stage, and I'm feeling around for my horn case. I can't see anything. I put in something. What's this? Feels funny. And the light came on. I had my hand on Miles' head. What do you mean? And then but he was cool. He knew what was going on, and we just chatted about wanted some oil for his horn, and we sat there, talking about stuff. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I remember from what chatting was his horn was painted black. So I said, "Don't you find that the lacquer deadens the sound of your horn?" He said, "It doesn't matter what it sounds like if you can't play it." And I said, "Right." So that was a bit of like
that was
Milesism. And he's right, the important thing is that you play it, not what it sounds like, So, yeah.
So from Lighthouse, at that time, I guess, did you ever play with Duke Ellington?
Yeah, Duke did an album here north of the border or something.
Yep.
Yeah, and
that's the one.
And either I was on that album or on a gig. We did a gig, and my
was it Toronto or Stratford? Was it Toronto or Stratford?
I'm pretty sure it was here.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was here in town. It was my friend Don Johnson, who was my teacher at the time. He got me the gig, and so I don't remember being in the recording studio. I remember doing this, playing this music. It was incredible.
And was he as verbose? Like, he used to really be clever at introducing songs and saying all kinds of witty things.
Oh, I don't remember any of that. I think it was such a big deal for me to do the gig, and that was the first sort of high profile gig I did. I think that was before I think I started Lighthouse.
Yeah. Oh, before Lighthouse.
Yeah.
And what about Quincy Jones?
So that was a little later, sort of mid '70s. Quincy came to town he had some people with him. Notable for me is that I had Frank Rosolino and who was the high note guy from
Maynard Ferguson?
No. He had El Gato. Anyway, this a high note freak. Was a wonderful player. This slips my name. It's just my brain at the moment. So anyway, he had these cats with him, and filled out the band with local players, which are all players from the Boss Brass, and I was playing with them at that time. So,
that's right. Now,
yeah.
Boss Brass, 7 albums you did with Rob McConnell.
Mm-hmm.
How much fun was that?
Well, it was a lot of fun, but it wasn't as much fun for me as playing with Doug Riley's band or with Blesswood and Tears. It was Rob's band was a well-oiled machine. And it was fantastic. And the feeling. I learned to play time in that band. I remember the first time I sat in the band, and that we were playing, and then there's offbeats, whatever it is. And I remember thinking, oh God, that's where they belong. That's where because everybody, there was no disagreement whatsoever. Everybody knew exactly where that was. And you just had to tune in and just ride the train.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic feeling. And the charts were gorgeous. And I was used to playing the lower parts. Second, or at the beginning I played like a third or fourth. No, I was always the bottom of the section.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was the weird guy, the add-on. So I got to play all the juicy notes, and everybody knew where their note should be, what level it should be, and what it did to the overall sound. It was a gestalt. And that was really a trip.
Right.
That was like every other band I played in, with section of BS&T or Doug Riley, those were small bands.
Mm-hmm.
But no other band I've ever had that kind of feeling in. It was just, and because we played so much together all the time, there were so many jingles and TV shows like Guido had a show at the time that had virtually all the same players, and so we were so used to playing together.
Right.
So everybody knew. You knew if Arnie was going to go up another octave. You knew what. It was just a nod to say we're going to push this. And that was like really cool.
Cool. So you were there, or at least you have a version of this story that is extremely famous, when the Boss Brass decided to start to add reed instruments.
Oh no, I wasn't there.
You weren't at that? Can you tell us what you know of?
I wasn't there before. That Freddie Stone, I think, was with that very first incarnation,
right,
where it was just brass, with the Boss Brass.
Right.
And then and then they did a gig at the Severn, and I understand that Mo and Rick Wilkins and some guys got together with placards and picketed the club unfair to saxophones, whatever. And then Rob, they did, because they were all tight friends.
Right, they were joking, but they also had, how many people showed up to that? Because I've heard there was half a dozen, I've heard there was over 20.
I wasn't there, so I don't know. But I don't think they did probably many more than I don't know how many gigs they did. They might have done 1 or 2 gigs with just the brass.
Right.
And then very soon after that, I think I joined the band.
Right.
So.
And were you playing with the band for any special guests? I know Mel Torme and different people came in and out through the band at times.
Yeah, we played with Oscar, and I see Guido on Guido's show, which is virtually the same band. We played for a lot of people, and Al Stanwyck, who played lead in the band along with Arnie at that time, keeps posting those videos. And I'm always surprised to see who people we played with. But then it was just a gig, and it was kind of loose, and it was like party time, and it was were different days.
Yeah.
The whole scene is much more organized and sanitized in some respects these days,
Right.
And there was it wasn't unusual to know everybody. Like when I'm on a gig, I know everybody on the gig, and every gig was union gig. There were like jazz clubs, like I never did a non-union gig, So now you never do a union gig,
right?
Because the union sort of lost it.
Yeah, yeah. What, do you have a theory on that?
It's just it's the money people have found a way. I guess that's it. I mean, musicians have always had a hard time since day one. It's not considered a necessity.
Right.
I mean, for a musician or for I think it is a necessary part of life, but we value some things more than others, and it's a little bit sad. Like that. But that's just the way it is.
You teach as well. Do you tell a lot of stories when you teach? Do you give some feedback, like how it was?
I talk about it differently now probably than I used to. I mean, that's a really big subject, But in the main, I have one kind of thing that's worth saying. The kids that I get to teach now, a lot of them learn to play in high school or whatever. They learn to read, but they don't play music for fun. Very often they learn to read and then read more and more, and then and their models don't go far back enough in history. So they're my experience is that playing lacks feeling, and I was used to when I taught at Humber in the 70s. I was teaching kids like how to play in every key and so on, patterns and that kind of thing. But they all had the same kind of history that I had. They were already playing music for fun. So, but a lot of these players, I don't think played for fun. They just get out of high school and they went to university, and so they don't have a love of or they don't know standard songs. And the reason for knowing standard songs is that you recognize the beauty of different kinds of progressions and different kinds of melodic resolutions. You play it because you love it. More and more kids are playing because it's something they do and something that they can get money for, or they get paid for, or their parents will put them through, and this is a secondary kind of thing, or they do it because they want to get chicks, I don't know, show off, whatever. And these don't belong in that. They don't belong there.
Right.
You better love this, or you got no reason doing it.
I guess it's like New Orleans, where everybody can play the same 10 songs, but they never get bored of it, and they always try new things and move all around in different ways.
And it's more a part of the culture. It's not a part of the culture. Like, so it just happened for me. There was no music in my hometown, but I was just like possessed with this instrument, and I was possessed with it because I was shy. And I mean, if I did this, I didn't have to talk to girls. You know, this is something I could do. That was like a terrifying thing.
Right.
So I wish I should have stayed terrified, actually. But anyway, I get into that, and I just played, and discovered music, and I got a few bad habits playing, but they were cleaned up easily enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think I think that's a nice way to come at it. But people don't come at it that way anymore, because right away you can log on to the internet and find all these how to play high notes, and on the trumpet. You do that before you have an embouchure.
Right, it's all technique.
Yeah.
How to hit the thing instead of why you want to hit it or when you want to hit it.
I noticed, for example, one of the things that people don't use vibrato, and vibrato is a really important. It's just an important part of instrumental playing that's not used. That it's because it's out of style at present, and it's a bit of a shame because everybody uses it, and it portrays emotion. So it doesn't have to be all the time. Not an antigote vibrato. There's every kind of nuance of that, but people are.
All right.
Oh, so we were talking about the use of vibrato or something. Anyway, so the difficulty for me is that kids are learning to play technically and learn to read before they learn to play or express themselves musically. You can express yourself musically if you just get an instrument and make some noises out of it. That's the way I think you should start. Mm-hmm. I think it's something about the old-fashioned, simple way of like, what's this Fernerton thing new? You make some noises and say, "Ooh, that wasn't so bad," whatever, and you keep. Or learning from somebody. You're in a family and people do it, So we have all these artificial ways now of learning that are pedantic and unnatural.
Mm-hmm. So. Now tell me about your time with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You did 2 versions of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You were there a long time ago, and then there again recent, right?
Recently, both times it was actually with David Clayton Thomas. So,
mm-hmm.
so I knew him through Doug Riley, and I played as a sideman in a show of his, and I'd seen him on the scene here, because he's a local boy. So and so he was putting a band together, and I was at a party at Doug Riley's house, and David was there. And David said he was putting a band together, and would I like to play? And I said, well, yeah, fantastic, So we put that band together, and he didn't have any of the charts because the charts had been in his basement. His basement got flooded, so I had to actually copy all the arrangements off the record, So it was kind of an interesting chore.
Now this is after Lighthouse, right?
This is after Lighthouse, yeah. So this would be late '70s. So then, so we went out on the road as a band was called Canada. So did Joe Seeley and the Pilch Brothers and Kenny Marco and Sally Chappis on drums, and who else? Harvey Kogan. So it was like a slimmed down version of the band, like 7 or 8 pieces. And while we were on the road, while we were doing a Canadian tour, we got a call from Fred Heller, who was a manager in New York, saying, why don't you, go out as Blood, Sweat, and Tears, we've got the name. So the band was reorganized a little bit. We got a couple players in the U.S., and then we went out and, started touring.
What year would that have been?
79. Yeah.
So was this the Blood, Sweat, and Tears? This wasn't the Blood, Sweat, and Tears from the first few albums.
No.
But so this was...
Yeah, the band broke up about a year before that, or 2 years before that. a fellow, Gregor Herbert, I think was his name, died of an overdose of drugs while they were in Amsterdam or something, and the band got bumped out, and it just broke up. And there have been many versions of the band, I mean, if you look online.
I've seen online. I've seen the version without David Clayton Thomas. It's terrible. I mean, the music's okay, but there's none of the magic without him in front.
Well, so yeah, I mean, there's something magical about having him and having the band. It's funny, in a way, it was perfect because it didn't work. What didn't work about it was that he's a blues singer, like a real soulful singer. And the band he always had a bunch of fusion hotshots, so they always want to do all this weird quirky stuff, and Dave just wants to get down and like just deliver the message, And the funny thing is that it actually really worked.
Right.
It isn't something you'd think that would work, but it worked.
Right. Looks wrong on paper.
And the arrangements, I mean, I fell in love with the band because the arrangements were absolutely gorgeous, like they were genius, and David's voice was like really happening. So anyway, it was always uneasy in that respect. And it's funny, neither one could work without the other. Something that that name got fixed in everyone's mind, and they wanted to have that. And Dave by himself, it couldn't get the same kind of traction. The band by itself still can't get the same kind of traction, even though they got the name. So it's not just the name; it's that he's got to be with it.
Yeah. Now, years later, you're not working with Blood, Sweat, Tears. You're working with David Clayton Thomas.
Yeah.
Years later, doing a lot of the same music, and it feels good.
Yeah.
Right. That live at the Opera House is a pretty kicking album.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the different feeling between?
Well, the difference for me was the earlier band was much more explorative. So. I mean, it was a joy for me. I love to write, so I got to write all the charts and write instrumentals, and it was those are looser days. Like everyone had a chance to step out and do whatever they wanted to do. Like in every instrumental or in every solo section of a record, somebody would be front and center, be Vern Dorge on tenor or Earl Seymour. Or Lou Piemonte, whoever was like, they would do their thing, and the whole band would stop, and they'd just take it to Mars. And we'd follow them, and they'd do it, and then they'd come back in. But everybody knew what was required. It was like, high energy time, and you had to have a wow factor, and that was part of the showbiz kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
But it was loose, and it was jazz. It was really, and the music was far out. The difference now is that it's over the whole scene. Everything's much more careful. So I mean, and now working with David in these later days, I mean, 8 bars or 16 bars or so was the solo, or it could be an opening, but it's quick and it's better to be focused, to be to the point, because people's attention spans have changed, or I don't know.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah.
With social media and all the things out there, people's attention spans are very short. It seems like, at least.
But it was like, it was a bit of a wrench in a way, because in town at the time I joined the band, I was really busy doing studio work and good paying gigs. But I felt kind of bored. We're Canadians, we march in step, I can't badmouth my own country.
No, but it's
I wanted
a little bit safer.
I wanted to get out there and see the world, and we certainly did, and we certainly took it. We took it out.
That's right.
And we had an awful lot of fun. It was amazing.
Speaking of seeing the world, you spent how many? 10 years in South Africa?
23 years.
23.
Yeah. Yes, I was there a long time. So,
God, you must be 150. I'm trying to do the math on all these things.
Thank you. It was actually a lot older than that.
Tell me about South Africa.
So we toured there in December 1980, and we were there for a month. And when we were in Cape Town, I remember telling a guy whose band opened for us, saying, "This is Shangri-La. Is there any work here? I mean, this is amazing. It is the most beautiful city on the planet. It's unbelievable." So he said, "No." He just said, "Forget it." But when I left the band, about a month later, I quit the band because it was evident we weren't going to make any money. The management was really crap. So so I'm living in San Francisco, and I moved to LA. And so this friend of mine from South Africa called me because he got offered a film gig. So did I want to come and write some film music? Well, it's a gig, you know, I'm a musician. Yeah, so I went. So I had a year's contract, but it turned into, a house and and 2 wives and whatever, a whole life, So
at different times.
Yes.
Not bigamy. Okay.
Quite. Yeah.
During that time, 2 people that you knew that are big heroes of mine. One is Hugh Masekela.
Yeah.
He gave you a horn. You knew each other somehow. What was the story there?
No, Hugh. I was playing in a club, and Hugh came in with his couple of bodyguards or whatever, a couple of his friends, and he was gonna. He heard this upstart, and he was gonna be a trumpet battle or whatever. That was sort of the vibe. I could just tell the way he came in. So I played a stupid game. Anyway, he came up, and he's a sweet cat, So he came up, and picked up his flugelhorn, and it valve was sticking. So I said, well, here. I said, notice I had the same flugelhorn. He said, here, man, use mine. So he took my horn and used it, and then he left with my horn.
So he didn't give you his horn. He basically just.
It was a mistake,
Of course.
So anything could happen. It was, those were crazy days, and so anyway, I told him later. We laughed about it, and I got the horn fixed, and I still play it.
How about your version of Manenberg? I love so much. Abdul Ibrahim is one of my jazz heroes. I didn't get to see Monk, and I didn't get to see Duke Ellington, but I did get to see him.
Right.
What was he like? Did he have a dry sense of humor? He's a really hard guy to figure out. He seems very heavy and very spiritual.
He's a strange guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll see this, but he's like a lot of geniuses like that. They have that kind of focus. I don't know. Well, I met him like in Cape Town, and I wanted to do something. I had an idea. He was working in the studio that I was managing or that I worked in, and I suggested an idea to him about how I wanted to produce his music, and he thought it was interesting. And then we never talked again. And a friend of mine now, a close friend actually, has been his manager for a few years now. But he just says it's like really unusual to work with him because he just sort of has his own way, his own view of the universe, So he's an unusual guy, and many geniuses are, any of us.
Right. I saw him live, and he didn't ever speak one word. The songs went one into the other, into the other, into the other, and it was like a 2-hour odyssey.
Yeah,
it was mind-bending.
He's an amazing compositional player. He's a real genius. No doubt about it.
Well, you have so many bands right now. The One World Trio.
Yeah.
You go from a trio to the Hotfoot Orchestra, and then now the Anti-Gravity Machine.
Right.
So when you're coming up with these, is this all based, because you're a writer first, is this based on compositions, and that's why you know how many people you need in bands?
No,
or what steers you to do so many projects?
For different reasons. Like I like to play, and I sort of like to mix. I like to play with people I haven't played, and that put me in different places. So the One World Trio was with Waleed and. I haven't seen him now for ages now. It's a sitarist. So you can put up a title. I'm embarrassed.
It'll be behind you. Right now.
Thank you very much. So we haven't done some work lately, except I've done lately some work with Waleed and Ada Mason. Now there's a fellow that not many people know, but he's a real treasure. Ada Mason's a local guitar player. Now he's from South Africa, and he plays the crap out of the township guitar. And he's been here for 40 years. He was with Anne Murray. He wrote This Is Our Toronto or something song, whatever. He lives in this few blocks from here, and he's a real guitar genius. So I'm going to do a series of gigs with him and Waleed. And that's like South African, that's like Batanga music, it's like it's a local kind of township music.
I didn't know how to pronounce that. Maganga.
What?
I didn't know how to pronounce that word because it's
Bakanga.
Yeah.
So, but that, you can say bakanga.
Yeah. And so that's the township music.
Yeah. So
right?
I just like doing that because it's township and it's a mix of and I like and Anwar Khurshid was the sitarist. So I haven't seen Anwar for a while, but I prefer a little bit more. That was a bit quite off the map, that. And it worked for way enough. We did an album, but I'm more interested to do this township because the township stuff has got another kind of freedom.
Right, right. And you played with June Garber, who's also from South Africa.
Yeah.
And she was my guest last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I love June. Everybody loves June. I mean,
Tell me a little bit about your favorite clubs here in Toronto. We're going to get up to the present now. Where do you love to play?
So when I play the Rex, so much. It feels that's the only club that feels like an African club to me. Like it's loose. The staff is really cool there.
And it's really laid back. It's right on the street. Everyone just walks in off the street. Yeah.
So I only know the places that I played, and I don't go out hunting gigs. That's why I don't do a lot of gigs. It's just a whole idea of going and calling somebody, and I don't know. That's hard for me to do. I just rather be writing music, playing.
Yeah.
So
let someone else try to.
So I like the Rex, and for the avant-garde thing, the Transac, I like. So I go there once in a while, and I do things. George Kohler and I did something there a year or so ago, and I do other things with Glenn Hall, who's a local avant-garde player. So that's a perfect venue for that, and that is you doing it for the love and a beer. You get
that's right.
Beer, the love, and whatever's in it, and that's fine. I remember I did a gig with George and a couple of other friends. At the end of this little gig we did, this was a project Heal the Universe. So it was just like we just gathered the vibes up and just give good vibes back. That was the idea. That was the brief, and then we just played. So at the end of the gig, I gave, I said, sorry, George, it's just $10. And he said, man, every one of these is worth $1,000 for a gig like this.
Right, and that's the right way to play, and that's why you love George Kohler, right?
Yeah. So these are the people you want to play with.
Yep.
Absolutely. And the other guys, the band, were like that, that too.
So what do you have coming up in the next while? You're working on a new record, or?
Yeah. So I did a gig last week with this fellow I mentioned, with Waleed and Ada Mason at Harut, this Ethiopian restaurant. So I like the vibe there, and so we're going to do a series of gigs there.
Oh, wonderful!
Yeah. So we start the 2nd of March, I think, or whatever, Saturday night, and so we'll do it whenever everyone's available. So that's great. It'll be a trio, and maybe Paul Nowotny came as sat in, so it'll be
right. He's their next door neighbor.
Yeah, and other people will come and play, so it'll be kind of loose thing. And that's the food is nice. The people are really, if the people are friendly and
the owner loves music.
Yeah. Oh, he's a sweetheart to me. Yeah.
So, what neighborhood do you live in? Don't give me your address here on camera, but what neighborhood do you live in?
So I live at 140 at Vic Park in Lawrence, top of the Don Valley.
Okay, so this leads to my question. I had a feeling you were on the east side. There's a lack of live music venues east of Yonge Street.
Yeah.
I don't really have a question here. I just think it's insane that so many great musicians, you just mentioned, Paul's there, you're over there, Colleen Allen's down the street over here. Everybody, there's so many people in the East End. Yeah. There's never a jazz club out here, or any kind of almost
it seems
nothing.
that the epicenter is on the West End. Like that's where the venues tend to crop up. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why that is. And all my work's in the West End because Humber's out west, and I coach a band in Mississauga, but I don't know what it is. It may be the culture mix maybe not be right. I don't know.
I think we need an East End club. I think we need something.
Absolutely.
I think we need something decent.
I haven't been. I haven't been for years. But there's Salty Dog, right?
Yeah. That's way out on the beaches. Yeah.
So, it would seem to make sense that to be something up in Eglinton or Lawrence, kind of like, or the middle of Scarborough.
That's right.
But I don't know of any jazz club up there.
No.
Actually, there's a map that shows all the music venues in the city. And I think there are music venues, but I think there are bars that have, like, somebody plays guitar, or they probably cover karaoke bars. But
right, or like one singer in a restaurant.
We want a jazz club.
That's right, where you can let loose. Something between the Transac and the Rex, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's good.
Well, I look forward to seeing you.
Area.
I will see you at Hey Ruth.
Okay, brother.
Yeah,
thanks a lot.
Cheers.